Okay.
Is that better? It's still kind of in and out. How's it going? Welcome to the Live Thrivingly podcast show. Today's guest is a friend of mine I've grown up with since junior high. We both received our bachelor's degrees from the Walton School of Business at the University of Arkansas, but we've never really had the chance to sit down and talk in depth about his outlook on life and his life's journey. He is an American Council on Exercise certified personal trainer, but his unique approach extends far beyond the basics of personal training. A little over a year ago, he left behind a sales job and lifestyle that was completely destructive and required him to put his own health on the back burner. This decision became the spark that lit an internal fire in his body, mind, and spirit that has become his driving force towards making a greater impact in the world. A phrase he lives and trains by is the pursuit of an elevated lifestyle. And while this may have many different meanings for everyone, the focus is on healing the mind, body, and spirit through an engagement with the earth as a natural healing process. He is intellectually curious and in his spare time enjoys expanding his knowledge about the human body and biooptimization. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to my friend, Ben Robinson. Welcome to the show, my man.
Yeah, Jack, thanks for having me on, man. Super excited when you reached out. Was happy to talk, and because I know you've been doing a lot of great things as well. So I think we got a lot to talk about. This is going to be a fun one here.
Yeah, awesome, man. Let's jump into it. So I know we touched on it in the intro, but I would love to hear a little bit more about your backstory and formative experiences that really led you down the path that you walk today.
Yeah, man. It started back in my youth, growing up in Arlington, a lot of sports, everyone was very active. I know we played in like the same Pee Wee football league. And so just as a kid, I was always very active in sports and just athletics my life revolved around that. So was always super into that. And as I started getting a little bit older, probably like 12, 13, 14, just like my health wasn't very good. I started putting on a lot of weight. And, as a kid, like no one talks to you about nutrition. You're just, I know I was eating fast food and, drinking Dr. Peppers and Sprites and, all that stuff that we did as kids. Cause you're just a kid. And if your parents aren't super into it themselves, then you're not going to know what the right decision is. So I was just kind of following suit. And once I got to high school, I was just extremely uncomfortable with my body and who I felt as a person. And, going to high school, you're trying to make friends and, you want to be the guy. And so a lot of the self-identity comes into play. And I felt extremely uncomfortable. I was hiding my body. And I was a big dude, I was tall. Everyone called me Big Ben, played football. I was active, but I was a fat kid. And I felt it, and I know other people could see it as well because I'd had some conversations with some friends at that point too. So once, got to high school, joined the baseball team, and ended up just having a lot of issues. There's some bullying involved and some harassment and stuff, but it was all revolved around my body and, me being afraid and not, being able to commit to some of the practices and stuff. And in hindsight, it's crazy to think that like, that's who the person I was. But just after that, it was definitely a defining moment. I felt so uncomfortable with who I was to the point where I gave up a sport that, as a kid, I'm going to play in the MLB, I'm going to play professional baseball. That was my thing. And I gave that up because of, the toxic culture, but almost brought upon myself because of just the physical condition that I was in. And so once that happened, last 2 years, just kind of played golf and was a normal high school kid, didn't really work out that much. And my senior year, I'll never forget because this is where it all started. My friend Cody Bullard at the time, who was also I'm sure you know who he is. He went to Martin as well. And he worked out at the original Metroflex gym in Arlington, which is, for those of you who aren't in the fitness community or bodybuilding community, it is the mecca of bodybuilding. Ronnie Coleman, 8-time Mr. Olympia, Branch Warren, everyone that's in fitness knows about the original Metroflex. And so thankfully enough, that gym is located in Arlington right off of Cooper Street. And he invited me for a workout my senior year. We didn't really know each other that well, but we were in the same friend group. And he invited me to a workout, and I walk in. It's, Texas summer. You know how hot those get. And it's this big garage, and it's dirty. There's plates all over the floor. It's grimy. They're playing loud music. It's something like you've never seen before. And I fell in love. I remember that workout kicked my ass. I think I was sore for about 2 weeks. But I just fell in love with it instantly. And from that summer on, I was completely obsessed. In some ways in an unhealthy approach, but I think that's kind of what it took to now find a correct balance, which I'm very grateful for, because, if I wasn't all in at that time, then who knows how long it would have taken me to get out of that divot that I was in. But since that moment, health has just always been on my mind, and working out has always been on my mind. It's all I think about. As soon as I finish the one today, I'm already excited for the one tomorrow. And I think you kind of have to fall in love with the process. If health and wellness is something that you're going to commit to fully, it can't be something that, you're only going to do Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends go get, fucked up, pardon my language, but that's what a lot of people do. You hear the bro split, you hear how that approach is. And I'm just completely on the different side. It's something that I'm building a lifelong career in. And, one of the reasons that we're talking today is because I'm trying to expand my knowledge and just talk to as many people as possible about their approach, because that's the crazy thing. Everyone's body is different. And, everyone has different feelings. Everyone does different things. And so what may work for one person may not work for the next, but there's something in the middle that we can talk about and see how we can, mutually find something from that. So yeah, that's where I'm at today. I know a long kind of explanation. But yeah, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I own my own personal training company, Robinson Training Co. And I'm looking to dominate the fitness industry and just keep learning and keep growing, and, at the same time, continue to prioritize my own well-being.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben, for kind of diving into that. I love it. And that's what I'm looking for, just kind of diving into these conversations and really hearing some of the backstories and stuff. Sometimes it's nitty and gritty, but I mean, that's the good stuff. It's all things we've gone through, and struggle with. I know in kind of the intro you sent me, you mentioned just some of that internal battle with demons within you and your fight, and like your willingness to fight and dominate those. Is there anything in particular you're open to sharing about this, or do you have any words of wisdom for those that may be in the same position as you? Or what?
Yeah, I think it definitely just depends on a person-to-person basis. I think my roommate just walked in. What's up, Will? But I think it definitely depends on like a person-to-person basis. And Jackson, can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
You're fine. So I think it just depends on the person and what they're going through and what stage of their life, because I think a lot of it is partially just experiences. High school is a major experience. It's a life-changing event. And so someone that's, maybe in junior high dealing with some issues may not have the same remedy as someone that's in high school and has a little bit more freedom, but also, a little bit more time under their belt. But more specifically, I think what's unfortunate about people pursuing health nowadays is that it's looked down upon as, you're the guy that's going to the gym all the time. You're the guy doing XYZ, you're skipping, hanging out with your friends. And so you do have to make a lot of sacrifices. And that's probably the most difficult part, I would say, because, you need a social support group when you're going through these things. And when you go through it alone, it's a lot more difficult than, maybe when you get to the end, you can celebrate with some people that you met along the journey. But for most, it's just like, you just got to look in the mirror and decide, what's worth it. If you feel so bad all the time, why would you continue to put yourself in that same position? It's, if you start to think logically about it and think out loud, it's like, what have I been doing?
Yeah, yeah, and how you've been living and kind of that like that group you're hanging out with. And I know, like you said, kind of sometimes on this path, like you may feel kind of isolated and alone, and like you're missing some of that social connection because you're making these sacrifices. But like you said, kind of finding that community and that group of people, I think is really powerful along the way, and that will help you and continue to fill you with more and more energy to pursue this path because of the like-minded individuals around you.
Yeah, and that's what's so the gym and the fitness community is unlike any other, because when you, and I've talked to this, every one of my clients I talk to about this, because most of them come in and they're intimidated. They don't know how to work out. Learning the process is one of the most challenging. You got to learn the motor skills. So every time we walk in, we stand at like the back of the treadmill and you can just view the entire gym. And I just kind of point out to a bunch of different people, who they are, what they do, what they've come from. And it really provides a perspective that at the end of the day, you may not have anything in common on like a job basis or where you're from or what you look like, but everyone's in here for the same reason. And that's to improve their health and body. So I think that's what's so unique, is because what I've learned, I've got a lot of unique people that I never expected that I would meet in my life. And they're just trying to feel better, and they're trying to look better, and they're trying to live better and live longer. And so being along for that process is very rewarding, because they come to you at probably their lowest point in their life. They're paying someone to help them with their health. They're not going to a doctor. They're not going to get LASIK or not LASIK, bariatric surgery. They're coming to work out, and they're coming to learn how to be healthy. And so there's definitely a lot of responsibility involved in that. And it's something that I don't take lightly. And, you have to be intense. If you're not intense with the process, then, it's just going to take you an extra 20 years, and 20 years later, it's going to be 10 times harder. And, so it's now or never. That's what I kind of like to approach it as.
Yeah, love that. And that kind of leads us into the next question that I had down here was, what are some common beliefs and or pitfalls you see people kind of struggling with regarding fitness, health, and wellness?
It's a good question. First off, I'd say social media has been a great thing for the fitness industry, but it also results in a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about having a platform, and just spreading their message without any, data to back it up or just any experience to back it up. So I'd say right off the bat, most people in the United States specifically, and globally, because, I think we're up to 67% obesity rate globally, which is, horrific in itself. Most people are under eating. That is the number one thing. And so when someone comes to me and their first thing is, hey, I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight. Okay, I'll chop your arm off right here. You're going to walk out 15 pounds lighter. Yeah. No, what do we actually want to do here? And so we actually talk about, their routine, how much they've been eating, when they've been eating, do they drink any water? Like most people don't drink very much water. And so after having those conversations, we kind of look at their daily caloric intake, and it's 1,300 calories. I'm sure this too. Like a lot of those college girls and high school girls seriously undereat. They're like, oh, I'm going to have my coffee in the morning, and then I'm not going to eat till 5 o'clock and have a couple berries and then a couple White Claws and some other stuff, and then some drunk pizza.
Yeah.
That's just emptiness. There's nothing there that is fueling your body. And so after having those conversations, just implementing, good routines. When do you eat? What do you eat? Where do you go when you get to the grocery store? All the processed foods are in the middle. Stay on the aisles or stay in the corners where it's refrigerated. It's real food. So just basic stuff like that, because you can't overcomplicate the process, because there's a lot of information out there, and we're not going to talk about, triglycerides or any of this stuff. We're keeping it pretty simple, and just making those small changes, and they notice it instantly. When you come to the gym after eating some fruit instead of, pancakes, bacon, and, a bunch of syrup and stuff thrown on top, you're going to feel a lot different. And I think everyone can agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. And I see that in playing out in social media, definitely. And kind of like you're saying, there's, it's a great platform for the people that are really spreading the right information, but it can also be hazardous because there's people on there that, maybe spreading some stuff that is not the truth. And if you potentially end up going down that road, like it might end up damaging your body, your mind, etc. So definitely, taking those precautions. But I think it becomes on your individual journey like a big deal to kind of learn to disseminate like truth out of like what you're seeing online and what you're like going through. Because when you go down this journey, like you may just begin to open up all these doors and these rabbit holes. And to be able to kind of like get really simple with it, like you said, and just keep it simple and just know like, this is going to be good for me, this is going to be bad. And like, you may have to really come to terms with a lot of the core beliefs that you have, or just kind of some of those societal beliefs that we grow up with that we kind of have to undo in order to really start living a life like aligned with more like health.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And a lot of it is just kind of trial by error. I've done a ton of different diets. I've done a ton of different exercises, and I've approached things completely differently, thinking that, I've been doing it wrong the entire time. And when you kind of break it down, it ends up being just like the basics work. You don't have to, wander too far off the path to maintain a healthy lifestyle. But when we have all this extra stimulation, through technology, just through a lot of different reasons, our mind tends to get cluttered, and then we start to wander off, and then you get a little bit further lost, day by day. And, you fall out of that pattern or that routine that was bringing you enjoyment and bringing you, positive results. And it's hard to get out of that. It really is. And so props to anyone that has done that. I know it's very challenging, and there's a lot of people that are still kind of stuck in the matrix, just doing the same things, not really understanding how detrimental it is in the long run.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's look into, you mentioned nutrition and diet. Also, I have a couple questions on those. So, I think I want to dive into this question next is like, uh, you know, I believe there are a lot of like misconceptions about the word diet and really what diet is. If you look at like the Greek meaning of diet and the word diatia, meaning way of life and to lead one's life, but rather, it seems like more the diet, these like when people hear the term diet is like a regimented food schedule, a certain way of eating that, so what are your thoughts and perspective on the term diet?
Yeah, no, I've said the same thing many times myself. Yeah, diet is looked at nowadays as like a temporary change. Oh, I'm gonna start this diet. I'm gonna do this for 6 weeks, 10 weeks, a year, whatever it is. It's always thought of in the short term. It's something that's temporary. So I completely agree. A diet should not be short term. It's a lifestyle. It's long term. This is something that I'm gonna do on the daily. It is a regimen. Because I think that's probably a synonym for lifestyle, something that you do, being consistent. So I think, I don't know where, social media, if that came into, I know there's been a lot of popular diets and, health fads over the years from Jenny Craig and, all this other stuff, which have been successful, and I'm sure they have results, but it's not long-term. And so I think the word diet is probably something that we could get away from, but I do know whenever, someone does come to me and I'm trying to go on a diet, I'm pretty quick to correct them that this is a lifestyle change. We're not doing this. I don't want you coming in here just for 3 months. And then after that, you go back to what you're doing. We're going to implement these things for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I like that perspective. And, I think too, like the way that I think about it is a diet is not always just what the food you're consuming either. I think it's more about like what you're consuming, like physically, mentally, intellectually. It's like, for example, like, someone who's feeding his intellectual diet might just be reading books. Like, there's so many aspects of being a human being that there's different layers and diets we need to feed. So, from a physical end, there's certain foods that we get nutrients from and stuff. And then there's like books, and it's, emotional diet. Like who are you surrounding yourself with? What's the input in? It's all about like the getting the good fuel in to get the good output. And, I think that is a way of looking at this that I think could help people like live more holistically.
No, I agree. I've never thought of it that way or heard of it, talked about that way. So that's really interesting. But yeah, I completely agree. Whatever you're filling your body with in all aspects, think of just all your senses, what you hear, what you view, what you touch, those all impact your life. And so just being constantly aware of those things, but you don't have to start all five at the same time. Fix one, feel a little bit better, fix the next one. And then, as you go on and on, that, biooptimization pretty much, you found 25 things in your life that were either bringing you toxicity physically or, emotionally, or maybe you're watching some stuff that, maybe spiritually, isn't too healing. So once you kind of start peeling back the layers, like you were talking about, you'll find a ton of different things that you can just, improve on, and they're really not that drastic. So, I know you're super big on probably red light therapy and, blue light glasses and EMFs and, turning off your phone at night and just kind of separating yourself from society when you can. And I think those are, really small fixes that everyone can make in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you say, just kind of like keeping it simple and taking it one step at a time, because there is a lot there, and I think kind of in the beginning, myself included, like it got a little overwhelming at times trying to fix like so many things at once, but really just taking those small steps and looking at those little parts of your life that it's like, I could remove this and this toxic part of my life, and then, see what comes from that. And then you can move on to the next one. But yeah, you're right. When you talk about red light therapy and blue light and EMFs and those type of things, and really just like, getting back to nature and doing things like grounding and stuff. It's like, I think a big part of like holistic health and overall just like lifestyle and fitness is like not only adding in the new diet, the new regimens, like the strength training and or the yoga and meditation, but also like taking out the old and really healing yourself so that the new regimens can really take hold and you can see more benefits from those.
Yeah, no, I've had this conversation it's kind of like one of those questions you ask people if, you don't have much to talk about and you want to kind of spark an interesting conversation. But the grounding is something that I've picked up over the last 2 years. And I'll just ask people randomly. I live in Nashville. There's not too much grass around. It's a big city with a lot of concrete and buildings. And I'll just ask people like, when's the last time your feet just like touch grass? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, I'll ask it again. When's the last time your feet touch grass? Like as a kid, walking through the grass, and they really have to think about it. And it's, they can't tell me an answer. They don't even know. And so that's just something like right off the bat, when I went on a walk on a Sunday, actually, as soon as I got to that grassy area, took my shoes off, was running up the hills with, just my bare feet, and it just feels great. You're connected to, nature, you're connected to earth. And that's just something that right off the bat, as well, I'm doing that, the sun's beaming on my head too. So it's, killing two birds with one stone right there. And I think those are just things that everyone should resort back to, because once you actually do it and you understand kind of the approach and why you should be doing it, I think everyone should fall into that routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And around earthing and grounding in particular, if someone in the audience is new to this term or like this kind of the whole idea of using this as part of your routine, there's a really great documentary I've seen on YouTube called The Earthing Movie that really dives into a lot of it and has a lot of scientific background as well. There's some good books by Dr. Clint Ober, and he really dives into that. It is a really awesome practice. And really, when I got into it, I was like, it takes you back to your childhood, really. And you think about like all the times you were running around as a kid, barefoot on grass, and I guess maybe some people didn't grow up that way, but I definitely did, in my yard, like in nature, like And there's something very healing about it, not only like mentally, emotionally, but spiritually as well. A reconnection back to like Mother Earth and like all the power that she has. There's things in this book about uh Native American tribes and stuff, like finding ill like white people and like burying them in the soil next to like a fire, and they heal things like scarlet fever, or like maybe there's a mental disturbance like psychosis or something, and they're able to draw this out using like grounding and earthing therapies. And I mean, that it sounds a little crazy, but if you really look into the science of it, it's there, and it's something that has been heeded for thousands of years by indigenous tribes. And we've kind of disconnected to that with the luxuries of modern society and the technological advances and stuff like that. So
Yeah, no, I agree. You hit that right on the head. Yeah, it's something that just, if you really think about it, I remember we went to, I was in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I was in San Diego recently, and just like being so close to like the water, like being able to walk in the sand, like those things that, living, I guess I'm landlocked, in Nashville here in Tennessee, but, those luxuries we don't have necessarily the opportunity to interact with on a daily basis. When you're out there, enjoy it as much as you can. There's a reason people go to the beach. There's a reason people go to the lake. There's a reason people go hiking and go camping in the woods, in the forest. Like there is something to that. And I think everyone has had, at least, maybe not everyone, but most people have had some of those experiences. And if you start to think about it a little bit more, it's like, damn, that was a really good time. I did feel really great. It's almost like a reset. And so I think it's something that's really important.
yeah, and to make time and space to maybe reconnect with that if you've lost that, and see what that might bring you.
But additionally too, kind of with the whole feet thing, I'm really big on just walking around I've got these big Crocs on that I wear pretty much all the time because it allows my feet to spread and my toes to spread. And I've had some foot issues recently just from wearing Nikes my entire life that, our feet are meant to like grasp the grass and grasp the floor that we're standing on. So when you look at your shoes that you're wearing and you see how curved it's making your toes, and then you take your shoes off. I mean, I've seen so many people, and my parents too, and I'm sure most people can agree, like you see their toes and like they've been wearing heels all their life and wearing these shoes, and they're like, why do your feet look like that? They're all smushed together. And so that is something too that, just being conscious of and picking the right shoes. You're walking on them all the time. Don't just buy the nice Jordans because they look cool. Buy something that's going to support you, because if you have bad feet, you're going to get bad ankles, and you get bad knees, and then your hips are going to mess up, and then your back. And so it's all connected. So just, that's something too. Just if you're dealing with some foot issues and you think it's related to the shoe that you're wearing, there's a great store called Feet Fleet. I know there's a ton of other places. I'm not sponsored by Feet Fleet, by the way, but there's tons of places that can like scan your foot and talk to a professional, because that is something that people need to be more aware of. Because if you walk 40 years and you finally start to, be conscious of it, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, man, that's really an interesting topic. Like, thanks for sharing that, because I think that it really is something that we really forget about, like our feet. Like they're down there, and they're really what carry us through this life, but yet like are probably one of the most overlooked aspects of like health and like fitness and stuff. It's like we do all these things, but we don't ever like really care for our feet. When's the last time you might have had like a massage, or like, even just massaged your own feet, like sitting there? I know that my sister got into a routine for a couple months of like doing that every night. And like, there's a lot of, science backing the reflexology of the feet, and how all the different parts of the bottom of your foot are related to all the bodily processes and organs. A lot of that rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. So yeah, there is a lot of power in the feet. And I think it's also good to think about like just that shoes in general, and like heels, like you're saying, and all these like shoes and socks are really kind of like a modern advancement only within the past couple hundred years. And that like our ancestors, like they were they were wearing like leather soled shoes, and they were like barefoot a lot of times and like connected, or they made moccasins. Like there's nothing wrong with using shoes as the luxury they are in this day and age. And I think they really help us with a lot of things. Like, you can't go build a building barefoot. Like, you need boots. Like, and you can't like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's guys in the barefoot running marathons, but like, in general, if you're going to run a marathon, you're probably going to want a good shoe and like the right sole. And like, you're going to want to invest in that because it's going to help you recover. It's going to help you be better during the event and things like that. So, but yeah, interesting topic for sure.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I wonder, I've got a little like lacrosse ball. If you don't want to massage your own feet, if you're grossed out by feet, I know there's some people out there that have that. But you can just get like a hard ball, like a baseball or a golf ball, and just stand on it and rub your foot and find those spots that are tender and just keep digging into them. And there's toe spacers nowadays. You can order those online, and if you're just sitting at home, it's like these little, almost like when people get a pedicure done. I've never gotten a pedicure, but it's like these toe spacers that spread your toes, train them to move and, not just be stuck in the same spot. So yeah, I agree. I think the feet are important, man. You got to take care of them.
Yeah. So, yeah, here at Live Thrivingly, really the core message I'm trying to spread is around holistic health rather than the outdated term of health and wellness. What is your viewpoint on holistic health, and how does one live a holistically healthy lifestyle?
That's a loaded question. I think kind of going back to just health in general, it depends on the person because there's so many different routes that you can take, from having a holistic birth to, avoiding pharmacology and going to a holistic doctor and having some conversations in depth about, some potential remedies for whatever you're going through. So I think it just depends, but I would say if I had to define it in like today's day and age, it's kind of just like removing yourself from what we've created and finding a remedy through, I guess, earth or a natural healing process. So, not being dependent on something that we've created in a lab to heal your body, but rather just using, what's available, food, exercise, those basic things that are the core values of health. And even, what we stimulate ourselves with, what do we look at, our phones, things like that, I think could probably fall into the box of holistic health, but probably more so just removing yourself from some of the things that we've created and resorting back to a natural healing process.
Yeah, I like that you are really focused on that natural and that earth aspect, because that's we've really come from the earth. And if we can kind of go back to that way of living, like things over time begin to really like almost heal themselves at times. Like we may try to force a change in our own bodies or our minds, that sometimes all it takes is removing some things that are blocking us from that level of health that we can find really through that natural approach. Like when I talk about holistic health, also, I just kind of I see it as like multifaceted, and it's accounting for, like your social cultural health, like, your friend group, like also like your career and like what's going on in your life there, and like your financial life and like your love life. And if you're a parent, like how are you, you know how are you raising your kids, and all these things, like all these different parts that, at times I feel like we may like really pay a lot of attention to our physical health and wellness, and then like our financial health, but then some of these other areas of our life, these pillars, are maybe struggling, and we could take some energy and time away from other areas, and move in making sure we can find more balance across these pillars of our life, so that we live in more balance and we really create that lifestyle we wish to live. And like going back to kind of your mantra there with pursuit of an elevated lifestyle, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Not everything's going to be perfect. There's always going to be something that is going to come up and it's going to require your attention, and you may have to sacrifice some things. But I do believe that prioritizing your overall physical body first, exercising, getting in that routine will alleviate a lot of the problems that most people think are super looming, and are going to be destructive on their own lives. But if you can improve your body and you start to feel better physically, and that improves your mind, and you release all these endorphins, and your brain starts working a little bit better, your cognitive performance, and you start to see how by filling that one bucket first, you can just almost dump it as you go into these other aspects of your life. And I think that definitely falls into play with your social circle. If you start to prioritize your own health, and you have people that are supposedly your friends that will try to take you away from that, or look down on you because you are making that decision, then those aren't people you need to be spending time with in the first place. So you're removing that additional, social toxicity from your life. And then you find some people in the health industry or at the gym that you're also on the same journey with. And then you start talking to them, and you're surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded and all share the same pursuit of an elevated lifestyle. That's why they're in there. So that's, something that I thought about before I'd even started my company. And it didn't apply as much back then because, there weren't people that I was necessarily working with at that time. But now, after having, some experiences and really just being in the industry and helping these folks, it's something that I truly believe.
Yeah. I love that perspective. I love your daily doses of wisdom on LinkedIn that I come across when I'm through there. One that stood out to me recently was your post about when we kind of get to feeling off or like out of routine from travels and events, kind of some inevitable life circumstances and situations, and the tempting indulgences that we may partake in when we're in those. And then, you kind of mentioned a protocol for identifying what is off and how you could get back on track. Do you mind shedding some light on this unavoidable reality we find ourselves in at time, and maybe provide some tools of navigation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to pull up the post myself because I don't want to misquote by any region here. But, I got to stay updated on LinkedIn. You know how it is.
Yeah. And go give Ben Robinson a follow on LinkedIn. He is active on that and has some really great little wisdom bits, super digestible and easy. Just nice to come across sometimes, especially when the majority of your LinkedIn feed may just be like business related stuff all the time.
Yeah. Job applications and all that stuff. But yeah, so something more so recently, I've had a lot of travel, just been going to places, had some life stuff pop up. Everyone deals with that kind of thing. So I know everyone has that post-travel kind of blues, whether, like you were saying, you've indulged in some of those temptations. You don't have a gym available, you can't cook your meals. There's a lot of sacrifices that are made on going on these vacations. But before you even get there, you should not look at that vacation or look at that time off as a negative thing. You need to enjoy it first, because if you're just going to be hating yourself while you're at the beach because, there's not steak and eggs right next to you, we need to take a step back and actually understand why we're here. You've been working out, you've been living healthy, so you're able to enjoy these things and not have a total collapse. But so to get into kind of my protocol, the first question is just how have I been fueling my body? What is my over under consumption of, my food? And so right off the bat, just look back at the schedule. Okay, well, I didn't eat this, I didn't eat that. I had to eat a burger, which I don't typically do. So it's not that bad. But I do always focus on like higher protein. I don't want to eat fried food if I'm out. So there's some small changes that you can still implement while you're on travel or while you've got these things going on in your life. But number two is just how much water have I been drinking? I'm sure people go on vacation and they drink some alcohol. Go enjoy your life, go do those things. But you also have to kind of find that ratio for how much water you're going to be consuming at the same time. So those dehydration headaches, dehydration body aches, you're not feeling yourself, go pound some water, like get back in that routine, fuel your body. If you start peeing a lot, that's good, flush out all that stuff. Number three has been, have I been exercising and moving? So typically on vacation, I like to go somewhere where I know I'm going to be active. I don't want to just go to the bar in that vacation spot. There's a bar here in Nashville. I've got plenty of options there. So actually having an intention, going out, walking around the neighborhood, going to sightsee, going to the beach, the hiking trails in the mountains, whatever it is, you can find something available and be active. And if you can't, I'm sure you've got room in your house where you can do some small stuff like some push-ups, sit-ups, stretch, just move your body, gain that access to movement. We need to get rid of stiffness. You're sitting in a plane, you're sitting in a car, alleviate that, allow your body to move freely. Number four has been sleep. And I do not do a good job with my sleep. And that is something that I need to change, but it's also a sacrifice that I'm having to make right now because I'm trying to work. I'm trying to build my business up. And so if I could get 8 hours every night, I wish. But sometimes that's something that I have to give up. And so after vacation, you're drinking, you're not getting REM sleep, you're sleeping in an environment that you're not comfortable with. Your brain, half of your brain is going to stay awake naturally. So just getting back into a nice sleeping routine, turn the cold air down, 68, 67, just snuggle up in your pillow and, turn off all the phones, turn off all the lights and just calm yourself and just fall asleep. So getting back on that nice routine will always assist. And there's a lot of people that believe in the fitness industry that sleep is the biggest natural performance enhancer. So sleep will kill people if you don't get enough of it, and it will drastically benefit your life or screw your life up, depending on how you approach it. And then the last one is just, what am I giving my energy to? And I think that one probably would more apply to the social setting when people are traveling, whether you're going to see family, go visit friends back in your college town, going to visit your girlfriend's parents, stress is involved. So just understanding who I've been talking to, how much of my inputs versus outputs, how much have you had to give? And so just being conscious of that, because, you do have to take a reset sometimes. Everyone knows when you just don't want to talk to someone, and being okay with that and being able to communicate that to whoever you're around and understanding why it's important to get back in that routine and just kind of disconnect and be with yourself for as much time as you can. Those are just 5 simple things that are not super difficult. It's just kind of, delegate 30 minutes, post-travel or pre-travel, however you want to do it. And just kind of think about those things and disconnect for a little bit and be conscious of how you've been treating yourself. And I think that's kind of one of the bigger issues as to why we've got so many health problems in the United States and globally, is just people don't even think about themselves. How do you eat that all day and not think, damn, I feel like shit? And then go back to it. And I don't blame anyone, because I know there's a lot of addicting chemicals and all that stuff. And, people are, no one has your back, everyone's stacked against you. So you do have to fight hard to get out of that. But once you kind of break through and you realize how much it's changed your life, you'll realize you'll never want to go back. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, a lot of wisdom in that. And it's just, I love how just simplistic it is. And I feel like we all find ourselves in that same scenario time and time again. So when I came across that post, I was like, this is super applicable and could really be very helpful for a lot of individuals if applied. And I like what you say, kind of back to that whole self-care aspect as well. I mean, we are really there's so many of us out there that we really prioritize others before ourselves. And I think that, when I first really kind of started getting into self-care, it was kind of like that idea that I'm being selfish to others because I'm taking some time away to just really focus on myself and making sure I feel in balance and I can relax. And when I did that, though, I struggled a little bit with well, what are others going to think about me? And am I being, rude to those that love me by taking this time to carve away? But really, I think it comes to a point with yourself where you have to be able to sit in that space and be your own best friend and really allow yourself to relax and realize that the world's going to keep moving around you, your friends, your loved ones, your business, but you can create that space and time to really get back into balance if you need to.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's unfortunate that it's looked at selfishly for being selfish for yourself. It's kind of an interesting approach, but I think too, just the benefits of just being in thought and trying to figure out who you are and not worrying so much about what other people think. Easier said than done, because at the end of the day, we're human beings. And of course, we care about what others think about us, but it's just not letting it affect your life, because you're always going to get positive and negative. A lot of people that you probably think are the best humans in the world, there's someone out there that has something bad to say about them. But how much of that input are you going to allow? It should be zilch, nada. You got to allow those things to just go on, because then they're just messing up their own lives. They're just sitting at home, these keyboard warriors, whoever they are, that just walk around angry all the time. And that's not my problem, brother. That's yours. And so I'm going to keep doing my thing. And so it's hard to do that, because we're so connected nowadays through our cell phones, through roommates. We've got a lot of people around us at all times. And so regardless of what other people think, if you're at that point and you're having those thoughts, it's probably time for you to actually make time for yourself.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. So kind of changing gears here. I know that you are a big proponent for, having a stable morning routine and setting the tone for the day. If you don't mind sharing a little bit about like what your morning routine looks like.
Yeah, it kind of changes depending on when I have to be up for work, and when I get home the night before. But biggest thing, wake up. I've got my phone on. I got the red light on my phone. I don't have any other lights in my room. I just moved into a new place, so I don't have blackout curtains yet, but it will be pitch black in there. Um, but first thing is I grab my Yeti that's been sitting on my bedstand. I chug a bunch of water and I walk outside for a little bit. I just kind of get my body moving. And sometimes it's tough, because you really want to snooze that alarm and you want to get that extra 5 minutes. You want to get that extra 10 minutes. But after falling into that routine and understanding how important it is for me to actually start my day, it's something that I can't give up. So doing that, just allowing myself to not hop on my phone, not look at my schedule, not think about what I have to do that day, whether it's good, bad. I want to be by myself. I want to, actually start. I actually want to wake up and be conscious and not be groggy. But if I could do that all the time, my life would be perfect. Sometimes those things, they don't work. You're staying at a friend's place, you got other things popping up. But definitely the biggest thing is just not being on my cell phone. There's a lot of texts that come in. You get a lot of notifications. Apple does a really good job of keeping you engaged on your phone. And so just removing that and allowing myself to just watch the world naturally as it starts, and not fill my brain with something that A, I don't want to see, or B, don't need to see yet. I don't want to put that extra space into my mind. So biggest thing I'd say for anyone is just avoiding technology, avoiding being on your cell phone. When you wake up and you turn on your phone, it's that bright blue light and everyone kind of like, we all know that feeling. And there's a reason we feel that way. So just avoiding the cell phone at nighttime and in the morning, just kind of being with yourself too, is kind of how that starts to play in.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I think like you said, like at nighttime too, I think, there's definitely ways that our evening wind down and our nighttime regimen that kind of allow us to have them a good morning as well. It's like a lot of people think it's all in the morning. A lot of times your morning starts the night before as well. Is there anything you do at the end of your days? I know you probably can't do it every day with your job and stuff, but is there a reflection or a meditation or something you do to kind of get into that nighttime mode?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I walk outside. The benefits of walking are unbelievable. What it does just overall for your physical body, but the endorphins it releases, these neurotransmitters that allow you to process your day. It's great. So I do that at nighttime. I'll sit outside. I'll enjoy the air. I'll just kind of soak everything in. I really love to stare at the stars. that's kind of something I've picked up recently because I moved a little bit further out of the city and I can actually look up and see them without, all the smog and stuff and pollution. So just looking up at the stars and just kind of realizing how small that I am. And I think by realizing how small that you are, you're almost like bigger in a way. You're just more in touch with what's actually around you. And so just kind of disconnecting, not necessarily thinking too hard about the day I just had. I kind of do that on my drive home. But once I get home, just kind of putting everything away, turn the lights down, get my water, just kind of chilling and just kind of staring up the stars and just thinking about whatever comes to mind. But just allowing that almost like brain dead feeling of just, I'm going to let my mind wander here. And, that's something that the phones has completely eroded from our lives. Think of the idea of boredom, right? When we were bored and kids, it's go outside, go do something. Nowadays, like when you don't get bored anymore because there's so many different stimulations you can have on your phone. People mindlessly scroll on TikTok for hours.
Yeah.
I deleted TikTok off my phone a long time ago, but I definitely caught myself like, where did those last 45 minutes go? I didn't even gain anything. And I saw a bunch of things that probably pissed me off.
Yeah.
So just, that's the biggest thing too, just kind of removing that extra stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny you bring that up about the phone. Like I just feel like with smartphones and stuff these days, like back in the day, we had like our grandparents growing up or something. Maybe they had one board game in the house. Maybe they had a stick and a rock outside, and they had a newspaper, or like maybe they have a book or two that they could dive into in their free time when they were bored. But it's like now, I mean, we literally have books in our phone, camera, like our camera, apps like games, like infinite amount of games for free on our phone. It's your calculator, it's your search engine it's your computer. It's become everything. And, just only, within the past few decades has this really evolved. So to realize like the influence that these devices have on our lives and to really create a healthier relationship with it, I think is massive for impacts on our health, mentally, emotionally, physically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's the way that technology has advanced, if you look at it now and you're like, oh, it's so horrible, it's ruined our lives. And you're just a pessimist because I do everything on my phone. My business is ran through my phone. We set up this meeting through our phone. So there's so many different tools, obviously, that we use it for. But it's just understanding that once I've achieved the things that are necessary to my life, like actually necessary, scrolling Instagram is not necessary to your life. Once you've kind of completed that checklist, take it away. It shouldn't be something that you're using for entertainment. I hate when I'm with friends or just with people, and I'm not saying I am perfect by any means, because I get on my phone a lot too, and it's something I'm consciously aware of and trying to improve. But imagine you're with a group of friends that you invited over or something, and everyone's kind of hanging out on the couch, and there's like a lull, no one's really talking, and then what's your instinct? It's to pull out your phone, right? And so fighting that, but also going back to the whole boredom thing, and grandparents are going, they got a board game, they talk to each other. Nowadays we don't even talk to each other. It's like this awkward silence because every time we're bored, or there's not something directly on the talk list, we just resort to our phones because we can't fill that space. We can't ask questions or just ask something stupid. And that's kind of where hey, when's the last time your feet touch grass? That would be a great question, if there's nothing that you guys can talk about. So that it's unfortunate because you see it kind of play out with these younger generations and just their inability to communicate and just build relationships in a healthy manner. They communicate through Snapchat, and text message. And then when they're hanging out, everyone just kind of in their huddle on their phones. And I get it. They're kids, and even adults do that. So it's unfortunate because we're kind of removing ourselves even further away from that human connection. And especially with having our phones on us. I mean, I think Elon Musk said this in a podcast a couple of years ago that we're already cyborgs. our phones are an extension of us. And so we've kind of already made that crossover. And now it's just time to reel it back and, use it as a tool for life.
Yes. Yeah. Use it as the tool and for all the power that it can bring, but don't let it, become a master over you, and that, everything in your day revolves around your cell phone. And I've done, a few just like technology fasts, and like really, I've probably created a much better relationship with my phone just by, if I have friends, over, or like right now, like I'm out here at Possum Kingdom at the lake house, it's like, when I'm here in intention, like I set my phone off somewhere and like I'm truly just with my friends for like the whole weekend. And I may pick it up once or twice, but what I've seen from spending more and more time away from my phone is that like every time you see that lull, or that kind of that place where everyone kind of gets bored, like you see those other people pulling out your phones. But like what I've been doing is like trying to fill those spaces with like an engaging conversation. And like it's made me like dive back into like really like asking questions about people's lives. Like I realized that I have a lot of friends, but have I necessarily really asked them like deeper probing questions about their life, their childhood, like what their viewpoint on life is and these things. It's, we can very much fall into kind of the typical like conversations with our friends, the recent football games and the, what's going on at work, how's work, what's the weather like? And then all of a sudden it's like the conversation can't go any farther. But, I think if we can really work to rebuild kind of some of those conversative skills. And I know that different people are gifted in these areas more than others. You have your introverts and your extroverts, but I think both parties can work on their conversative skills and just the overall, just the human connection that the phone has really gotten in the way of.
Yeah, no, you said it perfectly. I completely agree with that. And, yeah, you start to learn a lot more about folks, and also too, to just shed some knowledge to them that like they don't need to have their phone out as well. And I think letting people know, and not, you don't want to enable behavior, and you also don't want to, get in anyone's business. But at the same time, if I'm spending time with you and I've made an effort and I've made a time sacrifice, I've sacrificed time that I'll never get back to spend time with you. I don't want to be interrupted by your cell phone that has nothing to do with this conversation, but also isn't pressing or immediate. Scroll Instagram when you get home, do that, but actually try to sit and just think about, what it feels like to not have your phone, because those moments where you do want to pull out your phone and then you don't, like, what do you start thinking about? You never know. But you just allow that mind to wander. And so I believe it really is important to get back to just that human connection and just learning more about people, because there is that buffer. And it's unfortunate, because once you start having those real conversations and you see how limited you are on the other side of things, you're like, damn, like, what if I never figured that out about someone? And it's really powerful. And I don't know about your friend group. I like to keep a small circle of friends, and I do make it a priority to try to know everything about them. And I also think too, when you start surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, you'll realize that they also crave these types of conversations, these intellectually challenging conversations, but also at the same time, some of the dumbest conversations you'll hear in your entire life. But
Yeah.
that's what's so enjoyable about those moments, is like, there may not be any substance to what we're talking about whatsoever, but maybe you can laugh, maybe you can learn something, maybe you can just see a different side of someone or hear a different perspective. And so just allowing the infinite to take chance and to just fall into place, I think is a very powerful thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like that kind of goes back to that childlike mindset of where we've been. Like when you're a kid and you're beginning to develop your personality and your identity and things like that, like figuring out who you are and who others are, you're kind of in this place of just interaction with other people around you, nonverbal and verbal. And to really like connect back to that in a more conscious way in adulthood, I think is like really interesting. And like you begin to just like reconnect. Like recently, I just feel like sometimes like I'll be sitting sharing a conversation with someone, whether they're older than me or the same age, and just feel like, wow, like, I just feel kind of like a kid. Like we're all still kids, you know. I heard a quote the other day and it was like, it's never too late to like have a good childhood. And I know that that could go into a whole different conversation, but like when it comes to some of these conversations, it's just like have that childlike imagination and curiosity in conversation with others.
Yeah, no, curiosity. It's just allowing whatever is going to happen and just, yeah, no, I completely agree. And so it is really good to have those conversations, especially with like people that are already in your inner circle, like your parents. Like, and this is what's the hard part about moving out and not living in the same state as either some of your closest friends or some of your parents is, we kind of approach it as, well, I'll see them 2 times a year, right? Christmas, maybe an Easter, maybe a Thanksgiving, if not some other day or weekend sprinkled in there. So let's say 2, 3 times a year, right? Let's say your parents have 30 years left. So you kind of start a little clock here, right? You've got 60 more planned times that you're going to see your parents. Okay. This year goes by 58, it gets down to 20 and you start realizing like, how much do I actually know about these people, or how much of an important conversation have we had recently? And just not doing the same, checking up on the sports game, which those things are necessary. And that can also be what is part of that relationship building for you and that other person. I know me and my father, we bond over sports. That's all we talk about for the most part. So that is something that I cherish because it allows me to talk to him and, we just get to kind of hash it out on things that we're passionate about. So it can look different for whoever it is, but just actually getting to the root of what that person identifies as, and what they also prioritize in their life. And so once you kind of start having those types of conversations too, you realize that, is it called like the human condition, I think, where everyone pretty much shares like the same basic things. You'll realize you have a lot more in common with them than you think. So just opening yourself up to that, not being afraid to talk to someone. And I would definitely say I've been gifted over the last couple of years of talking to people because I worked as a security guard, at the front door at one of the busiest bars and talked to a lot of people. And then I was a waiter, and now I'm a personal trainer, and I've got an hour with these people and I know everything about their lives. And so it's really, really interesting, because you open yourself up to all these different types of people that come from all these different types of backgrounds and, what they're passionate about. And it's really, really cool to see just how different you can be, but also how much more similar than you actually think you are.
Yeah, 100%. Love that. And yeah, I think you hit on a really great point, which is like really, realizing like your parents and your grandparents, the people that are already there in your life that you may have not even tapped into some of these conversations with and connected with. And maybe you do a couple times a year, but it's like, even when in those times, how are you showing up and what's your relationship like? I mean, I've seen it really play out in my own life too. Like I've just begin to have a lot more like intentional conversation and really intrigued about like really learning about more aspects of like the people that are really close in my life, whether it be a sibling or, a parent or a grandparent. But, I feel like sometimes we overlook these things because we grow up with these people. But what I'm realizing now, like kind of at our age, like coming into adulthood, it's like, we think like, I feel like you go through that stage kind of in your like later teen years and like early 20s and in college and stuff. You don't need your parents. You don't, you're going out on your own. You want to, you really kind of want to disconnect from that. And then I feel like, I don't know if you agree, but for me, it's like I feel like coming back into adulthood, like all of a sudden I'm realizing they have like a lot more wisdom to share about life and like experiences than I may have like thought of when I was younger. I was like, push y'all out. Like I can figure this out on my own. Like I'm going to go figure it out. And then now it's like, like I really do value that time with them and those conversations spent with them. Like right now, I'm still living back home with my mom right now. And we have just got to develop our relationship to a whole new level, spending so much more time together in kind of adulthood and in my new identity that has, changed over the past 2 to 3 years after college.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point, and I completely agree. I think COVID also provided a lot of opportunities for people to kind of reconnect with their families. And you spent however long, months, I know months minimum, but, potentially a couple of years, just living under the same house. And I know that was definitely something that I wasn't excited for right off the bat because I was in college, I wanted to enjoy college. And I know these were things that I wasn't going to be able to do 6 months from now because I was graduating. Um, but yeah, just being under the same roof and just doing the same old things and, talking about good old times and, playing board games, watching movies, all the things that just spending quality time with. And someone close to me recently had one of their parents pass away. And so I've been thinking about this whole idea a lot recently because I haven't necessarily suffered any traumatic loss. And I've been very grateful for that, but it is inevitable. And it's going to happen at some point. And so having that event happen, which is very sad, definitely made me think about how I've been approaching quality time with my parents or with my friends that I haven't seen in a long time, because bad things are going to happen and you can never prepare for it. And so just understanding that the last time could be the last time, and, valuing every moment and learning everything about them, having those challenging questions. A lot of it's ugly sometimes because, you've really got to get to the root of it. And not everyone's relationships with their parents and their friends are top notch. But being vulnerable and being yourself and just expressing what's on your mind, what you're going through. I think everyone should find someone like that they can talk to, and just building that relationship too. I'm sure you've learned a lot of things about your mom that, one, you probably didn't know it happened before. And now you probably look at her in a different lens because she has this experience under her belt. And so there's a lot of different things that you can gain from it. But you just have to go in open-minded and vulnerable, because you can't ask someone else about their life and not be willing to share your own.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And that the vulnerability aspect too. I know that especially for anyone out there that has, gone through like a mental health crisis or still struggles with kind of like mental health issues, like is opening up to be vulnerable about and having those conversations with an individual in your life. And like, whether that be a therapist, online or in person, or someone in your life, a friend, a grandparent, a parent, like finding someone to be able to, maybe have those vulnerable conversations with will be extraordinarily healing for you as an individual if you haven't been able to get some of these things out. Instead you're constantly ruminating on them in your own mind, and like that is so much more destructive than finally getting out and sharing this with someone. And I think that I have noticed through my own kind of mental health like crisis that, sharing these conversations with other people, one, you realize other people actually might have gone through similar things and then you can connect on that. Or two, that like just having that conversation and like them knowing that you're in that space allows them to show up differently for you. They're like, you know what, like I didn't even know you were going through that. Like I'm glad you finally expressed that. I think getting past that barrier of feeling scared or like, just I think the overall kind of toxic masculinity that males are raised in, of not being able to shed like it's weak to shed a tear or to share deep like vulnerabilities. Like there is a lot of power in sharing that and getting that out, because we really carry that collectively, just kind of with this mindset we've been raised with through society, that males have to be this strong figure and we can't cry and we can't be vulnerable because that's it's just, to me, I see so much power in actually like stepping more into your masculine power if you begin to open up and be more vulnerable with people in your lives. And that's whether or not you're going through a mental health crisis or not. Like, I think that it's important to have that vulnerability in all conversations.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have said that any better. It's just like that. They call it, I can't remember the name for it. I remember hearing this on a podcast recently, but this woman was talking about her own mental health issues, and she got fired from her job, her family, everything just seemed like it was gone for her. And she really wanted to start like going to the gym, being active, getting out of the house. And you know how when we've had these thoughts in our mind, like, should I go to the gym? You're sitting on the couch, it may be late and you're like, should I go to the gym? You kind of give yourself like a couple seconds to think about it. You're like, no. But right before that, you're like, I need to go to the gym. Like you made that decision and then 5 seconds pass and you're like, well, should I go to the gym? So you have to be immediate. Because if you allow things to wait, like you said, you get in your own head. You just have to really rip off the Band-Aid. And I know when I've had really challenging conversations, there's almost like that split second right before and like, all right, am I about to do this? Am I about to open up here? Am I about to open this box or start this fight or, whatever it is that you're talking about? Most people, and I don't want to say most people, but in my experience, I have to think about those things. And I've decided recently that I'm just going to say whatever's on my mind, especially to like my partner or, the other important people in my life. Just, you have to be immediate because once you get it off your chest and you let that other person know, especially if they're a loved one or someone you really, cherish in your life, you'll realize how much better you feel once you actually get that off your chest, because odds are that person too is going to have an answer or they're going to have something that they can point you towards. And understanding, almost being conscious, and you need to probably verbalize it because I think that's really important, actually speaking things aloud, speaking it into existence, those positive affirmations. But just be like, I'm so glad that I actually said what was on my mind. And you'll realize once you actually make that decision that it wasn't that bad. It went a lot better than I thought it would. Right. So you have to do that first to understand the power behind it. But it'll be the best decision you'll ever make.
I love that you brought that up because that's been a huge theme the past few months with me and in the workplace and just in my personal life. It's like realizing that like these critical conversations, like you really like, there's so much inner resistance and like, you really don't want to have them. But I mean, I heard the quote one time and it was like, the quality of your life depends on the number of critical conversations you're willing to have. And that really spoke to me because like you said, when you have these critical conversations, like it seems like there's always like a release, there's a weight off your shoulders, there's some forward growth for you and the other individual on the other side. Like, but breaking through and actually sharing that emotion and getting that out of you, like is the catalyst. But the more and more we carry these things around with us and don't speak these things out, like the harder it may become for us emotionally.
Yeah. Seneca has a great quote. He says, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And it's absolutely true. All these problems that we think we have, I do a good job of like writing out my to-do list or like my weekly list, what's going on. Because before that, I was just trying to think about all these things. And it's like, well, what do I do first? What direction do I look in? And so when you break it down and you keep it simple, just keep it simple, you realize nothing is too daunting. And if something is challenging on there, that's a perfect opportunity to ask for help. Whether it's financial, whether it's personal, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is, there's always someone that can be in your corner that can help you, but you actually have to ask.
Yeah, love that. Keep it simple, and sometimes it just comes down to asking and getting over that hurdle. Sometimes it's tough, but when you ask, it always seems to benefit you in the long run. And another thought that kind of popped in my mind when you said about just writing stuff down, I think when we talk about having these conversations with others and anything in general, especially around emotional and mental health, like if you're someone that likes to journal, or if you haven't tried it, like I definitely, for people listening, like journaling has been such an amazing practice for me, because maybe there is something you want to tell someone, but it might not be the best to actually say it in conversation, like, or at least writing it down in a journal or on a piece of paper. Like if it is true and you need to say it, like you'll be led to say that. But sometimes just getting that out and down on paper instead of reacting in the moment and like venting to someone, or like, maybe someone upsets you and you just go at them in that moment, like maybe take a step back be conscious of the emotion that's revealing, and go and write that in your journal and stuff and reflect on that and try to figure out the root of, the problem that's there, or the tension. And you could work in a more constructive way to dissolve that, I've found, through kind of journaling through your thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that too. And to kind of go back to toxic masculinity and, a lot of these societal norms that are placed on men, it's sad because you see a lot of, you could even push this to the armed forces and the suicide rate in this country. I'm not sure exactly what number is, men compared to women, but I know predominantly men represent, our soldiers and our veterans and our, first responders. And you see the alarming numbers of suicide and a lot of these terrible, terrible things that happen within these communities. And a lot of it is based around them just not even asking, or not even, no one understanding that something was going wrong. You always see it on those posts. It's like, we never knew, things looked so great, but it takes that, you have to peel back the layer. Everyone can hide something. And so also too, just being aware that having emotions is good. You are supposed to have emotions, and don't run away from fear. Don't run away from that anxiety. You have to take that on. And so anxiety was something that, I never really understood up until recently. And I was just explaining this emotion to someone, this scenario that I was in. And he's like, no, dude, like, that was you had an anxiety attack. And I was like, no, like not me, like not me. Like, that's not me. Anxiety, depression, like that stuff. No, no, no. And he's like, no. And so I really kind of thought back, and I was like, that same exact feeling has popped up thousands of times in my life before. And I never really understood what it was, the fear of public speaking, that you kind of just want to crumble and, like, sink into your seat. And, I never knew what that was. So just being able to communicate that, being emotionally vulnerable. But you have to do that with the right people too. And sometimes you can get burned, and someone's going to take advantage of you, or tell your secret to someone else. And it's unfortunate that there's some evil people out here that do that kind of thing. But I'd rather that happen, and me learn from that mistake, but also appreciate the fact that I was open and that person just made a bad decision. So you have to be able to live with the consequences too, because, not everyone can take something to the grave. But just starting off, just, being vulnerable kind of is the buzzword right there. Just, it's a simple word, and it can mean a lot to different people, but just kind of taking down the layers that we wear. And, I know in the work industry now, and I'll just speak on my own personal experiences. I'm a big guy now, I'm 6'6", like 240 pounds. I'm a big dude, and I played sports, and, I'm active. I like to be a man. I like to eat steaks. I like to go out in nature. I like to watch fighting. I like all those things. And yeah, like, I get in my own emotions sometimes. Sometimes I get overwhelmed by things, but I can't run from that, because the longer it just stacks up, the worse it's going to get. So I've got a lot of people that I love in my life that I'm able to talk to about these things. And a lot of that too is, been rebuilding that relationship I've had with my family. And I'm very grateful for that, because now there's so many different people that have lived so many different ways that can help me out in so many different ways too. So just expanding your network too, and just trying to recruit people as friends and, your social support group. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. And I appreciate, you showing up like as all you are today, and like your vulnerability and expressing all your thoughts and ideas and your truth. It's really been a pleasure, Ben. And I kind of want to just cap off the show with asking you a question. When you hear the words "live thrivingly," what comes to your mind?
Outside of Jackson Hall, live thrivingly. Thrive has been a word that I've seen a lot recently. I'm thriving, everyone's kind of been saying that. And when I think of that in my own, I guess in my own personal sense, it feels like you're just kind of flying high on the clouds. I'm just thriving. I'm doing better than great. I'm just amazing. And so I think live thrivingly is really similar to, pursuit of an elevated lifestyle. You're just living above what is beneath you. And so just kind of approaching it from a different perspective. Live thrivingly. Yeah, it rolls off the tongue pretty nice too. But I think it's just, living, doing what you want to do, doing what you like to do, being happy, doing cool stuff. And I think a lot of that, once you peel back the layers of what live thrivingly is, you start to see, the entire conversation that we've had today kind of being the foundation for how to live thrivingly.
Love that. Way to just wrap it up with a bow there. So yeah, Ben, where can people reach out to you or follow along with your work?
Yeah. So I've got an Instagram set up. It's my training profile. It's Robinson Training Co. I've also got a Facebook group and a YouTube account, both Robinson Training Co. LLC. And then, like Jackson said, I'm on LinkedIn, and you can just find me through Ben Robinson. And I'm not on Twitter. I don't like to be on Twitter too much. So, but yeah, that's where you guys can find me. I've also got a website. It's robinsontrainingco.com. And if you want to reach out about personal training, you can hit me on any of those, or, find my message through Jack somehow. But yeah, I'm open to having any conversation, helping anyone. There's no barrier to fitness. Exercise is the most important thing you should ever do. And I'm just trying to change the world one person at a time, man, just similar to you.
Man, love it. Thank you so much for hopping on here today, Ben. These links will be in the description, guys. And thank you, Ben.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me on.